Yes, of course. I mean, we need to be realistic, and as long as we are not really treating this crisis like a crisis, of course, people won't understand that we are facing an emergency. We can
So,
people with.
welcome to the Grand Solar Minimum channel, first of all. Thanks for tuning in. This is kind of a special edition right now. And what we have is Greta answering questions from lawmakers here in Washington. And I kind of wanted to commentate on this because this is important, folks. It's important on so many levels.
By that, I'm not saying that
okay.
You don't have any responsibility.
So the audio is good,
of course,
finally.
Humans are social animals, and we copy the behavior of people around us. And if our leaders are not acting as if we were facing a real emergency, of course, then we will not understand that either. So it's sort of, we're stuck in a hamster wheel, so to speak. And someone needs to break that. And the people with the most responsibility, of course, have the biggest opportunity to do that. And that's why you have such an extremely big responsibility.
I'm going to pause this really quick. Before they just resumed, they were in a 5-minute recess. Greta was asked about China's consumption and should they be held accountable for their production of man-made emissions. And the way the question was phrased, for some reason, Greta found it amusing and chuckled before her answer and said, well, you have to figure out a way to position it correctly. You just can't go into a country and ask them to stop producing CO2. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why not? I mean, you know, you want to talk about people who are in bed with China. Here we are. We're taking advice from an 18, 19-year-old young female who is just telling us right now that we need to start holding accountability for the emissions that are produced in the atmosphere, but she wants to let China off the hook. We got to. She's saying we got to put kid gloves on with China. Yet we all know that they're one of the top producers in man-made CO2, as if it even really matters. So let's listen, guys. And here's the thing: I'm a little upset that my taxpayer dollars are being used to host this virtual questioning from congressmen, Democrats and Republicans alike, asking Greta questions about the climate and taking her advice into consideration for future laws here on taxing carbon and killing off fossil fuels based on a person who is just an activist. She's not a scientist. She doesn't have a degree. She's an activist. And unfortunately, an innocent bystander. Her parents are also activists and actors in their home country of Sweden. So you can imagine this poor girl, in my opinion, I think Greta was pushed into this, forced into it. All the money that was thrown at them. Do you really think someone her age and younger really gave a damn that much about the climate to go up on stage and really give the performances that she's given? Again, she comes from a family of actors. And yet our lawmakers, the people that pass laws to tax you, are going to sit here for hours and listen to her testimony. So let's listen in and see what she says.
Thank you, Ms. Thunberg. I now want to recognize our Vice Chair, who's been waiting very patiently. Sorry for all the technical errors. Vice Chair Rashida Tlaib.
Well, thank you so much, Chairman Khanna, and thank you so much for our panelists for your patience. Happy Earth Day, y'all. I hope we are celebrating Earth Day at some point that we've actually been able to have meaningful action on climate crisis. So I represent the 13th Congressional District in Michigan. My entire district is in Wayne County, Michigan, which hasn't met SO2 standards set by the Clean Air Act in over 15 years. We know that 75% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the United States are caused by burning fossil fuels. In Detroit alone, my residents can speak to the real life consequences of our country's unending corporate greed, with large fossil fuel companies pushing to extend the life and utility of these dirty fuels. A few years ago, piles of petroleum coke just showed up on the Detroit riverfront. It started blowing around in huge clouds and coating nearby homes with a thick dust. And so I want to share with all of you, because I want you all to see for yourselves what the human impact is when we promote this kind of pollution that is killing us. And with that, I'm going to ask our committee to please again show the video of the petroleum coke on the Detroit riverfront.
Again, if we are killing ourselves with a certain pollution, if that is the truth, okay, why are we allowing ourselves?
Mr. Chair, I can continue and we can go back to the video if necessary.
Why don't you continue, given the technical difficulties we've had, and then if we can, we will.
Well, it turned out a lot of the clouds, many folks didn't really know what it was. We found out it was petroleum coke. Some call pet coke, a byproduct of the Canadian tar sands extraction, which is turned around and sold in the United States by companies for cheap fuel source abroad. So when we raised alarms and environmental regulators told us it wasn't, it was safe. They actually told me as a Michigan State representative, don't worry, this isn't toxic. It's not on the EPA list. I said, how is that possible? Why? Because lobbyists and others were able to.
Thank you very much, Mary, for the donation. We appreciate this.
That emits far more carbon
we are supporters. We are subscriber supported. So again, every little bit helps. Thank you very much for the kind donation.
And have the ecology
again, this Senate hearing or this Congress hearing, folks, is going to be excuse my language, a bitch session about how horrible fossil fuels are, how terrible us
when we continue
as a civilization we are
the use of dirty toxic fossil fuels. And the international
polluting the air with fossil fuels and CO2. Oh, by the way, Mari pointed out something today that NASA
each year
has found a way
these greedy corporations
to convert
have even received $15 billion
CO2 into oxygen.
Relief packages just alone last year. This is so egregious, the egregious amount, especially for the industry that has spent decades.
Can convert CO2 into oxygen. Well, wouldn't that solve the problem here on Earth? I mean, I have heard that, Earth is slowly losing oxygen from its atmosphere. So, again, there's so many hypocrisies here. If we knew that this pollution that we're doing was killing us and killing our planet, why is it allowed? Why is there carbon tax? Why is it even allowed? Why are we today? Joe Biden announced that he wants the United States to have a 52% less carbon footprint by 2035. 52% less in 15 years? Are you kidding? We were told 3 years ago by AOC and company that if we don't do something within the next 12 years, we're going to die.
Spreading misinformation about climate change and has spent millions lobbying to defeat climate legislation here in Congress, all for profits, regardless of the human cost on life. Last term, I brought this subcommittee to my district for a field hearing on regarding this kind of pollution, and it was in the shadows. The hearing was done in the shadows of the Marathon Petroleum and the pollution. Again, in the 48217 community neighborhood in Detroit, which is the most polluted zip code in the state of Michigan. So I wanted my fellow members, I wanted my colleagues to smell what my residents smelled. I wanted them to see exactly what it felt like, literally, to walk out of their house, to see all the oil refinery pollution and how it really made them feel. And so I really
So I'll say this, I am with her on pollution.
How oil and gas companies
we have to do a better job at producing clean energy. I agree. I don't like dirty drinking water and I don't like dirty breathing air. So I get it. But let's not lie to the public and waste tax dollars and blame it on us for climate change. reduce emissions for the obvious reasons. Pollution, air pollution, water pollution. That is not good for our planet. Tell the truth.
Thank you so much. And there's so many ways it's affected me personally in my community. But the negative health impacts, first, we noticed the odors and then headaches and nausea, body aches and pains, mental confusion.
So this is a testimony of numbness, an individual
aches and pains
who has experienced the pollution from
the other part about this is that
here in Michigan, what she was talking about.
We had no support, no help. There, you file complaints to the regulators, the Ohio EPA.
Again,
and little action. And
I am in full support of clean water and clean air. Okay, obviously we don't want to produce items that can medically kill us because of the pollution that we breathe in or the water that we're drinking. Now that's the real threat. Okay, the chemicals and the pollution that we put from some of these factories. Here in where I live, surprisingly, there's a lot of paper companies up here. We don't have an official EPA location or even a group that monitors the air quality here. And I can tell you this, with the biofuel thing they do here and the paper companies and the smell near these plants, and there's nobody here monitoring. We need to do a better job. We need to get EPA involved when we have communities like this, because I can tell you another thing. It does affect your community. As a private citizen, one of my jobs that I have dealt with the public. And in the region that I live in, I can't tell you the amount of people who have some kind of skin disorder, and it all goes back to one of the companies they work at that produces these toxic chemicals that pollutes our atmosphere. Not CO2, but whatever they do in the paper company, or there's a metals company up here that melts down metals. They've been accused of having unsafe practices. In fact, some of the people that I'm talking about, their skin is blue. Like, no exaggeration, a grayish, bluish color to their skin because of the unsafe practices these companies would do, and it affected physical health of these people. And not just that, but is it affecting the water? Are we getting water pollution as well? And if that's the case, if you're ingesting tap water for so many years in the same area, does that affect things mentally, physically, genetically? You start reproducing, and next thing you know, you've got a community, a village, a town out of control with medical issues because of contaminations in the water and just the pollution in the air overall. So that is a concern. That's real. This right here is bad. These toxic fumes, that pollution, that soot. But this has nothing to do with climate. This is not what is changing our climate, folks. What's changing our climate is the sun and its natural cycles. And right now, we're getting ready to go through the granddaddy of them all. And we're alive to see it with satellite imagery and all this neat technology that we can monitor this entire grand solar minimum as long as the grid doesn't give out.
Thank you very much for your leadership. Now I want to recognize
Representative
Harrell for 5 minutes for your questioning and comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
Thank you. I really do appreciate this hearing. It's very important, and just a little reminder that I'm so thankful for the fossil fuel industry. 46% of the fossil fuels goes to the making of gasoline, but 54% is used in so many products that we take for granted every day. And in fact, if not for fossil fuels, we wouldn't even be having the capability to have these remote calls and talks right now because of the plastics and medical devices, eyeglasses, pantyhose, asphalt, road, shoes, tires, bottle for water, iPhones, cosmetics. I could go on and on. So I just want us to be very we're very mindful of the products that are important to us on a day-to-day, in each of our day-to-day lives. But with that, I'd like to ask Mr. Macarola a couple of questions. If he's still on, I'm hoping he still is. I know there was a little technical difficulty. But in 2019, the oil and gas industry contributed 39% of New Mexico state budget funding critical programs such as education and infrastructure. Can you quantify the industry's nationwide contribution to states, the overall number of jobs that your industry supports, and the nature of those jobs, if you have those numbers available, or maybe your best estimate, please?
Sure. Thanks for your question, Congressman. I think if you look at the gasoline tax, which supports our infrastructure, roads and bridges and highways, you're talking about $36 billion. You're talking about $14
So what we're
billion
seeing right now is basically Republican setting up the picture here. We have fossil fuels are responsible for everything that's happening right now. The Zoom call, your computers, your iPhones, your glasses, your pantyhose, the asphalt, the tires, the list goes on and on and on and on. And now she's pointing out what fossil fuel industry puts back into the community. I get that. I get that. They're trying to de-villainize the fossil fuel industry because the AGW wants you to think that all oil companies are the same, all coal companies are the same, they all operate the same, they're only here to pollute and damage our planet. I'm not going to sit here and say that there are some plants that don't do a good job. There are that do a really good job and continue to work on technologies that will help burn cleaner energy. But there are companies out there that do violate quite a bit, and those should be held accountable and corrected for the reasons I just listed, though. Not for the climate, for the well-being of our civilization. The pollutants, the chemicals they put out from these companies that are not responsible with their waste, that affects the drinking water and the breathing air, cause real problems. And I do believe that I'm witnessing in that near the area that I'm in because of bad policies, no one holding anyone accountable for the improper use of chemicals, fossil fuels, whatnot. So, again, folks, this is all about educating yourself. And right now, I know I'm probably talking over some important numbers about the fossil fuel industry, but I'm glad to see that Republicans are not just rolling over and asking lame questions to Greta. In fact, some of these people are probably not going to address Greta. She is part of this group. She's not the only person here.
And I just think we have to keep in mind it's
so in a way, to me, this if not a Republican representative, if not one of them recognizes Greta, that tells me that the real science is on the other side of the aisle right now, because they know that she is a puppet for the AGW. Pardon me. That's plain and simple. She doesn't know anything about the complexity of our climate. She doesn't know how it all works. None of us do, really, but she really doesn't. She is an actress. Her parents are actors. She's an activist. She supports a cause. Everyone feels good about it because it's protecting the planet. That's the main force they drive into your brains. We're saving the planet. We're saving the planet. Burning cleaner energy is saving our planet from pollution, but it does not save our planet from climate change. And what frustrates me is that there are lawmakers that are considering the advice of Greta.
Right. Thank you. And not forget the products that we use every single day that help medical, vitamins, all these things. So we need to be, I think, thinking of this more collectively and not segregate it. So,
yeah, she's saying
Mr.
pump the
Chairman,
brakes.
thank you so much for hosting this, and I yield back.
Thank you. Now, is Representative Omar here? Is Representative Ocasio-Cortez here?
Oh, God.
I know we got requests from both of them, and I see them on the screen, but not present yet.
I'm going to tell you something. If those two, especially AOC, can't even show up for this,
witnesses, I know they.
That tells you right there.
Ocasio-Cortez and Representative Omar.
This is a
wanted
joke.
To ask questions. Are there any members right now who?
Yes, sir. Pat Fallon, sir.
Okay, why don't we
Pat's eager and ready. Let him go.
Fallon, since you are present and the camera's on.
Jeez, settle down, Pat.
Could have you recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Eliminating the tax provision supporting fossil fuels, it's going to save about, if we did that, would be about $3.2 billion. And the renewable incentives we spend right now about almost $10 billion, about 3 times as much. I can remember being a child in the 1970s and looking, and I was fascinated with global geopolitical events. And there was a dream that America had, and that was to have energy independence. And we had long gas lines and oil embargo. I was a very small kid, and I remember how horrible that was. We had this dream, and it seemed like a pipe dream of energy independence. And here we are on the cusp of that remarkable achievement in some members, unfortunately, of the Democratic Party want to enable, and I think, unfortunately and unwittingly, embolden our enemies by hamstringing our own energy industry. We have, the fact of the matter is that the United States is now a global leader since 2000 in reducing CO2 emissions and in energy production, and they're both remarkable achievements, and we should do everything we can in our power to facilitate this kind of success. The energy industry, let us not forget, accounts for this 10 million high-paying jobs, and this is also a national security issue. We just had former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo come and speak, and he talked about how he was empowered as a diplomat in foreign relations, and it aided him because so many countries wanted to talk to and deal with the United States because of our abundance in fossil fuels. And there's a moral case, and I think a very compelling moral case, to be made for the fossil fuel industry. I mean, look at over the last 100 some odd years, the technical achievements and advancements we've had. And the life expectancy in the United States in 1900 was only 46 years of age. And now it's 79. That's a 72% increase. And the quality of that life that Americans lead now, of all races and creeds, that we didn't lead in 120 years ago, before really the advent of the fossil fuel industry being as productive and efficient as it has become. And the cleaner energy, and that's our goal for everyone, regardless of party or really even nationality, in different nation states, if we want cleaner energy, we should unleash the expertise of the energy industry that have shown and proven such innovation. And, as one of our witnesses said about being judged in history, let's not forget that, unfortunately, with the Democratic majority in the House, they're going on a wild multi-trillion-dollar deficit spending binge, and they're saddling future generations with a crushing debt and forcing them into an untenable financial crisis. So we have to be consistent here with what we can do, and I think the best way to do that is to support the fossil fuel industry and help them. Help all of us with producing more and cleaner energy. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. Thank you, and I yield back.
See, none of the Republicans that support the fossil fuel industry are even addressing Greta.
Get on and having some difficulty. I don't know if Representative Ocasio-Cortez or Representative Omar managed to get on the platform.
What a joke.
Yes, I'm on the platform.
Oh, there she is.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Well,
here's another one of our favorites. AOC and Greta on the same show. I hope everyone's taking their anti-nausea pills.
Of course. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And apologies again, this overlap with the vote has kind of complicated a lot of our timing here. I wanted to dive in a little bit into a couple of the myths that we see advanced in climate work overall. We've heard a lot of, frankly, fantastical stories about what we would do if we actually commit to saving our planet. We have heard that it is a socialist conspiracy takeover to bring down climate emissions below the IPCC report of 1.5 degrees Celsius. We have heard that it will cause electricity bills to skyrocket and prompt families to pay hundreds of dollars a month in their normal electricity bills. But that doesn't actually compare. While we see these statistics and these studies by Republican and conservative and pro-lobbyist think tanks develop these theoretical ideas of what nightmares could potentially await us if we actually stewarded our future, they fail to acknowledge what's happening right now. Let's take, for example, electricity bills. While there's all this fear mongering about if we switch to solar, if we commit to wind, that our costs will go up a lot, that fails to acknowledge what we just saw in February when Texas had a freeze and their fossil fuel infrastructure was so inadequate and unprepared, thanks to both climate denying politicians who refuse to invest in infrastructure to adapt to our future and acknowledge that we will be experiencing climate events in regions that
no, you idiot, that was lack of supply.
And also
had nothing to do.
Who doesn't want to invest and actually take the cost of preparing for our future. So what did that yield? It yielded $16,000 electricity bills, oil and gas electricity bills, funded electricity bills from an oil and gas infrastructure on everyday people in the state of Texas. $16,000. That is just the everyday, what we are seeing for everyday people. But then let's also talk about the justice component, because we introduced the Green New Deal
she
earlier
is
this
out
week.
of her league on this
and
one.
Of the
and this is what they do. They twist words
justice,
and they make it something it's not, and they spin it.
And environmental racism.
This is ridiculous.
Contributes and is a key element of fossil fuel infrastructure and climate change. I wanted to ask a question of one of our witnesses, Ms. Tara Hushka. We see the Dakota Access Pipeline. We've seen what's happening with Line 3. And it seems as though there's this pattern of fossil fuel industries and fossil fuel pipelines intersecting with native land and treaty land. Is that a coincidence?
I appreciate the question. The reality is that we're the places that are out of sight, out of mind. We are the last places, like I mentioned in my testimony, the last places holding the sacred. When they want to put through a pipeline or through a mine or through some other extractive economy, they don't put that in a rich suburb. They don't put that somewhere that's going to go through other people's land. It goes through ours. Just like what Rashida Tlaib was saying, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was talking about, when it comes to refinement, it goes in Black and brown communities. From beginning to end, we are the people that are disparately experiencing the impacts of not just the climate crisis, but of the actual building of infrastructure. We're the sacrifice zones.
Yeah, and in fact, in the case of the Dakota Access Pipeline, it was originally supposed to be constructed through a wealthier and whiter neighborhood. And that neighborhood organized and said, not in our backyard, put it over there. And that is what allowed the political, would you say that that's what helped contribute to a political environment where it was
blame the white people. It's the white people again. It's like, wow, like she's putting the knife in and twisting it right now, folks.
They did their best to try to look away, but then there was a movement that was born by LaDonna Allard and by the youth runners that ran out to DC that woke up the world and had the president being questioned in Laos about the Dakota Access Pipeline. So although they're trying their hardest to look away and to not look upon our faces, the faces of the original peoples of this land, we are pushing back. Every single pipeline infrastructure project that's proposed has indigenous resistance to it. That's the reality of the situation. It's not just us in Line 3. It's Dakota Access Pipeline. It's Mountain Valley Pipeline. It's Save Oak Flat. It's all these different places and spaces of people and faces who are trying their best to protect our lands. These are our sacred lands. We cannot just pick up and leave. These are our homes. We were put here by the federal government. This was the exchange that we made for the country that we're in to exist today. And they're coming for those last pieces. So that's what we're tasked to do. And we have plenty of young people who are standing with us and leading this fight for their future.
Thank you so much.
And see, I think that's a better reason to stop the construction of a pipeline and blame it on stealing land from the natives versus saying it's bad for the environment.
Green New Deal.
So, in my opinion, they're bringing up some truths that have nothing to do with the climate.
People who want to
just to help make things look more dramatic.
All morning, and so we're waiting on Representative Omar and Representative Gomez and Representative Porter. Let me just ask, is any member here right now who wants to be recognized? If not, we will wait for those two members who I know have been texting me all morning and have been here. While we wait for them, I want to give the opportunity, if since we don't have any members right now, if there are any of our witnesses who want to take this opportunity to respond generally to anything that they have heard. We also have Representative Christian.
It's open mic night, so go ahead and get it out, folks.
He joins. Is there anyone who feels that they need to clarify anything or respond to any of the questions? Just raise your hand. Yes, Ms. Hunkler. And then after your comments, we'll go to our Congressman Krishnamurthy.
Well, there's many things I would like to respond to, but one thing I can remember being in these meetings that the oil and gas industry were holding for local people to come in. I went just so I could be informed about what they were saying, what was going on. And they promoted and sold this on energy independence. And my question is for Representative Fallon, how can you explain all the export stations? Wasn't the purpose all along to export the oil and gas to higher price markets overseas?
Well, your question is noted for the record, and we'll see if he gets back to you. I do want to. I see Representative Krishnamurthy has joined us, and appreciate him joining us. Representative Krishnamurthy, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Hey, thank you, Chairman Khanna. It's so nice to be with all of you, and I apologize for being late. I was just voting. If I could please turn to Ms. Thunberg. Thank you so much, Ms. Thunberg, for joining us, and thank you, Chairman, for convening her with us. Ms. Thunberg, one of the questions that people in my district, especially among young people, might have is, if they are a young person and they don't know what to do in terms of fighting climate change, what would you, on this Earth Day, happy Earth Day, by the way, what would you advise them to do in a very practical way?
Thank you for a question. Well, first of all, I would say that it is not up to them to do the work. They are not the ones who are the ones who have contributed to this crisis the most, and the responsibility doesn't fall on their shoulders. But of course, I understand that many want to take action, and of course, everyone has the responsibility. So then I would say that, there are countless of ways to get involved. I would say maybe the most important one is to become aware of the actual crisis that we are facing, to educate yourself, to read as much as you can.
Yeah,
because
please do.
Understand the
because
crisis,
Greta didn't.
Then you will know what you can do yourself.
She's a great actor, has no answer, no substance to this answer either.
An active democratic citizen. It is our moral.
These Democratic lawmakers are looking to her for advice to help communicate the climate crisis, and this is the answer she gives?
Just on election day, it is every hour of every day of the year. And we need to make our voices heard, because if enough people stand up together and collectively put pressure on the people in power, like yourselves, then change will come, because we young people are the future, and the people are the ones who have the power, even if it may not seem like that all the time.
Oh, that's great. Motivational speaker, Greta.
Thank you for your advocacy. I apologize for pronouncing your last name incorrectly. My last name is very interesting, so I say that my last name gets me on a first name basis with everyone. But that being said, you can call me Raja. But Ms. Thunberg, let me ask you this: in all of your advocacy efforts, what has surprised you the most in terms of either the response that you've received or in any other regard?
I don't know, maybe the fact that people are actually open for change. I thought that people didn't want change and that we were just stuck in our old habits. But after having talking to people, both people in the fossil fuel industry and people, just everyday people, young people, it had made me realize that people are actually more open for change than we realize. So that is something that has surprised me more than I would have thought.
You know, a lot of people in our country, in the United States,
good stuff here. Let me tell you, rich and compelling.
Fossil fuel industries, whether it's the oil industry or the natural gas industry, and a lot of those workers want to know what the future holds for them, given that we do have to fight man-made climate change and we do have to transition to a renewable energy economy. What would you say to them? Because they obviously are fearful about the future and taking care of their families and having a job that puts food on the table and so forth.
Of course, and who can blame them? I mean, everyone, that's natural that we care for ourselves and that we want to be able to feed our families. So, of course, this is definitely not their fault. Least of all their fault.
She must be on that $15 Cuomo internet.
Among the top priorities that we actually leave no one behind, and that's what the climate crisis is all about. That's what climate justice means. It means justice for the people who are most affected, but it also means that no one is left behind. And of course, I'm not a politician. I'm not even from the US, so I can't speak exactly on that. But that's basically all I can say. And people think that we climate and environmental and human rights activists are against people in the fossil fuel industry, but that couldn't be more wrong. I mean, we are fighting for everyone. Climate justice is social justice. We can't achieve climate justice without social justice. So that's what it all comes down to. That's why we are doing this, because we care about human lives.
Thank you so much. My time has expired, but thank you for your service. Thank you, Chairman.
Somebody asked me if I was practicing for open mic night or a comedy stand-up career. No, this is hilarious. This is a joke. You just thank Greta for her. Thank you for your service.
I know patient.
What service?
Since the beginning of the hearing with us, and
everybody in the chat, you guys are awesome. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, "Someone please get their child." I mean, our lawmakers are relying on a child. And what are her answers, guys? What are her answers? They have no substance. They lack any kind of substance. There's nothing. The one guy asked her, "What would you tell young people they could do to help in their role in fighting climate change?" And she was like, "Well, really, it ain't the kids' fault. You know, you guys are the ones in charge. We can't do anything." I just thought, here's this Democrat who's trying to line up this beautiful question about climate change and what you, the young person, can do to help fight it. And Greta knocks it down like, "It ain't us, it's you, man. You got to change the laws, not us." So classic Greta. Every time I see her live or talking to the public, she's negative. She doesn't play ball like the narrative would like her to play ball. Like, she's on their side, but she's really, resistant about it, I think, in a weird way. And I think that's also another indication that this chick is just acting, that she was forced into this and that all this money was thrown at her. And let me tell you something. When you're 16 years old, that's how old she was roughly when this whole thing started, and you're getting thrown thousands of dollars, maybe, who knows, maybe millions. Who knows? Who knows how much money she gets? Elon Musk got her a Tesla? I mean, when you have that kind of treatment, I think you know the answer to this. And it's just the nature of a child. The child doesn't know any better. You throw them $300,000, they look at you like, "Oh, you are the almighty God. Thank you." That's a lot of money to them. That's a big deal. That's a lot of money to a lot of people. My point I'm trying to make is it's a little more exaggerated because they're a child. They can't process this stuff. They're not mature enough to process. This guy's got an awesome green screen, by the way. Look at
The
this.
reason why I first come to the conclusion that these fossil fuel subsidies, and especially the targeted tax expenditures in our tax code for oil and gas and coal, represent a failure of government, is because we're actually spending money that's basically just increasing the profits for these companies. The impact on production is truly negligible. But if we really want to be thinking about how we use the tax code to support investment, these are not the way to do that. And I think it's all the more important because if we want to favor certain kinds of investment, we got to think, what's the return?
And I'd say what's more frustrating is that these Republican lawmakers that support the fossil fuel industry have a chance to talk about natural climate science, natural solar cycles, natural cycles, period. El Nino, La Nina. You know? They're not educated. These guys are all talking puppets. Republicans and Democrats, they don't know. Trump had the opportunity in one of his debates to answer the bell of what's going on with climate change. He was in a one-on-one on NBC, another opportunity to talk about climate change. You know, his answer was, I don't think anybody really knows. Okay, thanks. And he just kept saying, we'll see. That's sort of against the AGW, but he could have said this is natural. This has happened before. He didn't have to go into grand solar minimum. He could have just said we have evidence that's happened before. What was driving climate change 500,000 years ago? I mean, they just released a paper, and by the way, the AGW used it as a scare tactic, saying that 500,000 years ago we were 6.5 degrees warmer. So at the rate we're at, that means we're going to be triple that here soon. So this paper was designed to say, if you think it's hot now, just wait. Because according to this paper, 500,000 years ago, we were 6.5 degrees warmer than we are now. We didn't even have human activity. So basically, they're implying that all of our activity is going to multiply that increase when we do have natural warming because of man-made pollution. CO2 is causing acceleration of climate change. That's false. It's absolutely false. If we were 6.5 degrees warmer 500,000 years ago, and we are at record level CO2 concentration as far as we've been keeping record, recent civilization, let's just say that, all right? We are seeing the highest level of CO2 ever. Why aren't we seeing the temperature rise higher than 500,000 years ago? Again, I just think people need to step back, take a quick look at the facts and history of the situation. This is a waste of time. This is a waste of our tax dollars. And the only result here is that it's Earth Day, and they wanted to grandstand the climate crisis, the climate crisis. Actually, there isn't a fake climate crisis. We have a climate issue, absolutely. It's changing, and it's called the grand solar minimum. And things are only going to get worse as far as declining temperatures, precipitation, and ice growth. You better believe it. We're already starting to see that. Things are changing already. So I just kind of wanted to point this, and I want everybody to share this, because I think it's important that I feel like I've highlighted a few things that should be the obvious. A, we're relying on a child who has no climate science training, no degrees, no PhDs, no experience at all. She's an actress. Her parents are actors and actresses. She's an activist for a trend right now, a trend that's going to make people millions of dollars that are invested in it right now. Elon Musk is one of them. Al Gore, of course, is another one with his meat company. And Elon Musk, is it a coincidence that Elon Musk gave Greta a brand new Tesla for her birthday? Again, they're all in it because they all know they're going to be filthy rich. So I want this video shared. We need to educate people about climate science. We need to educate people when they vote. They need to realize they're voting these people in that are going to change the laws. I'm okay with having cleaner water and cleaner air to breathe in, but if I'm paying a ton of money for my energy bills because the government thinks we're saving the planet from climate change, and I know it's more expensive, I know it's a waste, I know it's not going to happen, that angers me. I like money. I like to keep my money in my pocket. And by having these unnecessary new laws that are coming potentially from this administration, that's going to take more money out of my pocket and yours as well. And what's even more disgusting is how indoctrinated our schools are. Mari had to deal with a situation where Greta video was being played in her daughter's classroom. And do you know how hard it is to explain to a child that I know your teacher's telling you that it's your fault we're having climate change? And we don't even allow her to challenge it in class because we don't want her to get in trouble. We don't want her to get an F. We don't want her to get in trouble with the teacher. It's super hard when you see these mixed messaging here. Frustrating too. Because folks that went to high school in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you guys were taught about natural solar cycles and climate change being natural. Only recently have we heard that it was man's fault in the 1989 and beyond. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. We just wanted to bring this to your attention. If you want to watch more of this, I'm sure one of the C-SPAN channels are watching it, but I've heard just about enough. This is not about climate. This is not about anything. This is about getting people richer. They want a grandstand because it's Earth Day, and this is just a bunch of misinformation. Unfortunately, even the people in the fossil fuel energy part of this are dropping the ball on talking about why climate change is happening. Nobody knows in this group here. It's Climate Science 101, and they've all got an F today. They don't know. These people don't really know why the climate is changing. Frustrating. All right, folks, have a great day, and we will talk soon. Take care, guys.
Do you like the show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description.